I'm assuming this is credits. Starting to. Okay, there we go. Alrighty. Credits. Alright. Let me grab my stuff. I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to beat the game today. You know, I just. Stuff and stuff with the stuff and stuff. Sadly, I don't have as much as I would have liked written down for this. I did write down some thoughts, but this is gonna be weird to say, but the game was shorter than I thought it would be. I figured it would be a little bit longer because I did, you know, a lot of side quests and a lot of goofing around and didn't really know where to go, so I thought I still had some hours to go, some plot points to hit, but okay. I guess Radiata Stories has been completed, conquered, and all the other good stuff. Overall thoughts. At this very moment right now, I really don't know where I stand. Because I think the story is not constructed in a very good way. I'm not sure where I stand with the combat 100% yet. I'm just kind of conflicted, I guess, on where I want to complete my thoughts, I suppose. I will say that in the end, I did enjoy playing this game. I had fun playing it. I do not regret playing this game. It was a very unique game that I had fun experiencing. But I don't know if I necessarily liked the components of the game, I suppose. I don't like how they told the story. I'm not necessarily a fan of the combat, but there's some cool things in this game, and I think that's important for the game. So I guess my overall thoughts is it was a fun game, and I enjoyed myself, but not 100% sure if I like it. So yeah. Story, was it satisfying? I'm gonna say no. I feel like there just wasn't enough going on with the story. It felt very sparse. I think we've got a lot of elaboration from the side quests with Genius, but I wanted more coming out from that. You know, it's just all of a sudden a dragon shows up, and then now we're fighting dragons, and you gotta choose a side, and there could have been more character development. There could have been more world building. There could have just been more, just a lot more, and I felt like we got a lot less. And a lot of that is because of the structure of the story and how piecemeal it was given, but it still had some problems in of itself. You know, it wasn't, it didn't elaborate on itself enough. Did it feel complete? I suppose I can say it feels complete. Don't think there's anything lingering that I need to know about. I mean, I'm sure the like the golden ending, as it were, the true ending, probably involves you teaming up with Gans, saving Dynas, and probably killing Cross because Cross probably has one of those gems like infused within him or something like that. So collecting all the gems, and then something happens, you save Ridley, restore balance to the world, yada yada. How was the pacing? Absolutely atrocious. Between the long stretches of where do I go, what do I do, and the we're going to develop plotline C and leave the fate of A, B, D, and E in the air for now, even though they may be more pressing. Yeah, there was just kind of weird stuff. I mean, in the end, all of those plot lines eventually um, connected with each other, and I'm well, except for the princess getting kidnapped. But I would imagine that if you talk to the right person and start the right quest, you get access to finding what is his name, Nocturne or something like that, and kind of fixing that problem and getting the gem from him. I don't know. I tried going into the void district or whatever many times, and I I didn't get anything. I eventually did stop going there, so I mean maybe I had to go there a couple of times, maybe a certain time of the day. I don't know. Thoughts on the story? 24 hours into the game, I certainly struggle with the game's story. If I can even reasonably call it that. I've been considering all the voice acted scenes main story, but I definitely have no evidence of that. Prior to making my big decision, what I got and what I received were a bunch of mishmashed narratives that got screen time, but contributed nothing to what I would consider the main story. So uh, a lot of those scenes, like for example, Ridley gets attacked by the orcs and receives transgenesis. Gans joins the Thieves Guild. Mystery orc guy who pays in fake money is looking for someone. Princess gets kidnapped. Jack gets to command his own squad. A lot of these narratives, they start, but they never really go anywhere that you can consider like, okay, this got the attention it deserves. Ridley getting attacked by orcs and receiving transgenesis. We get like these little side scenes every now and then, but we don't get to learn anything about that. Which you probably learned something about that on the other route, the non-human or the fairy creature route, but it it's one of those things where I should have a enough of an understanding of what's going on to make an informed decision when the decision comes up. I think that's what makes decisions like that more impactful. If you don't have a whole lot of information, then the decision is just basically a toss up. But if if you can kind of weigh your options and go through the pros and cons based off of the lore and the world building and the characters as they have interacted with the story, that would have been a more impactful decision. Gans joining the Thieves Guild. This had no impact on anything in the entire game for me. Again, I'm sure it's related to the true ending in some capacity. I'm sure you can recruit him if you follow some specific steps or do some specific things. I did every side quest that I had access to, and nothing came about it. I thought maybe by doing like after we fought the Wind Dragon and there was that cutscene with the whole gem falling out of Jack's pocket, I thought maybe that was the moment where um like side quests were going to be important. It's like, oh, okay, if I start doing side quests, maybe I can get more gems that way. But it didn't seem like that came to pass. And then all this other stuff, like Jack getting his own squad, that didn't amount to anything. It nothing happened for that, and we just got the squad, and then that was it. It's like, you gonna send me on any missions? You gonna give me anybody to put on my squad? We're just the Oct Squad, and we're just acting a fool over here with one person. For the writing, some moments of brilliance. Other times that make you roll your eyes. There's a nice bit of comedic effect that the game plays well with, and I've enjoyed those moments. I think they did some really good scene building in this game. A lot of their cutscenes had very interesting interactions with the characters, and Jack is a very animated character, and his facial expressions are so entertaining to me. So it was really enjoyable to get those scenes, and they played off of a lot of aspects in those scenes as well, such as uh, the music would cut in and out, and the um, uh, various other things that would happen. So I was very happy with how they approached, I guess, writing in those scenes. And and on the other side of that coin, there were definitely some very cheesy moments, some very poorly written moments, but overall, I enjoyed the writing quite a bit. For gameplay mechanics and design, what gameplay elements stand out? The 177 friends is certainly cool and much more fleshed out than other games I've played, and with lots of party members. With that said, it is still very shallow from a character development perspective. There is still very little point in recruiting a diverse cast of characters that contribute nothing to the story or have no growth or development for themselves. Their only purpose is to fight, but only a certain percentage of the time. So uh, I don't necessarily want to compare this game to Suikoden or any other game out there that has a lot of characters that you can recruit. But I feel like every game that has a lot of characters that you can recruit has the same problem with uh, those characters, and it's that they they don't have any like actual purpose to be there. They don't comment on what's going on. They they don't have basically any dialogue whatsoever, except if you talk to them in town. And once you recruit them, I don't believe, I haven't talked to many of them much, but they just don't contribute anything. They go about their lives in the city, and then they say, "Hey, you should take me on a mission," or something like that. Meanwhile, like, the world is ending and people are dying, and they're just like, "Are you going to take me on a mission, Soga?" It's a little disappointing. I would have much preferred a four-person cast of um, Jack, Gans, Ridley, and Clive, or Genius, whatever. And those are the only characters that you can recruit in the entire game, and they actually talk. They discuss things. They get into fights. They they participate, and there was none of that with these characters. You also can't customize any of your friends' equipment, which I guess I can kind of understand a little bit, but the there's another one of those little like disconnect things where it's like, okay, how do I actually know that this character is going to work out for me if I can't customize them at all? What if I want them to have certain abilities, turn off certain abilities, use only this ability at this moment, or something like that? Um, so it was strange. Learning new attacks for weapons is cool. I thought this was a very cool thing. I wasn't expecting this game to have multiple weapons, and then each weapon having their own specific attacks. I don't think it necessarily played out in the way I was hoping, where I would have access to all the weapons like at the end of the game, and I can basically just choose what playstyle I want. I think I got a little restricted from that because I couldn't necessarily play it out that way. The best spear I had like 40 something attack. Meanwhile, I found a two-handed sword in the final dungeon that had 127 attack. So there's no way I'm going to go back to using that spear. There's no point in doing that. It would have been much more interesting if they leveled the playing field with the weapons so that maybe the weapons didn't have the damage values. Maybe there was like some other aspect with the equipment where that was responsible for giving you the strength and the attack, and you could use whatever weapon you wanted to supplement the play style that you were looking for. I also think that in the end, the weapon play styles weren't as diverse as I was hoping they would be. You know, axe was a little bit slower. The spear had a little bit more reach. The one-handed sword was a little bit faster. The two-handed sword was a little bit stronger, or maybe a lot. I don't know, but uh, I wish there was a little bit more of separation between the weapons. It would have been it would have moved the combat in a better direction, which I'll get to a little bit later. The different weapon types is a nice way to freshen up the combat. Yeah, despite me saying what I said, I think it was very cool to see different attacks and different animations for the different weapons. And because each weapon had, I don't know, like 15 different attacks, plus a Volti attack, and then a Volti blast, you know, there's a lot of things that you can do in a fight. That being said, I don't think all of those options are valid, and I'm not sure I talk about this at all, but I'll say it here now, even though it's not necessarily the combat section. I don't think every choice for a weapon is usable. I haven't 100% tested it out, but I feel like the first three choices that you get for a weapon are probably the best uh, options you can use for attacks because they're usually the fastest, and they don't have like a lot of wind up or end lag to them. A lot of the later attacks, they say they do cool things, but they also take forever to actually do those cool things. And the enemies, they're running around, they're attacking, they're guarding, they're doing a lot of things that don't give you the opportunity to do that. Especially on boss fights, you know, I feel like there's no time. And you know, I also don't talk about this either. The CP system combined, actually, I do talk about that, but I'll briefly mention it here. I don't think the CP system is uh, as useful to this combat system as well, because yeah, let's say I have 15 CP that I can utilize. There is no conceivable way that I can safely use the entirety of my CP in an attack chain and then like be good. I can probably get off two, maybe three attacks before I can run away and avoid the attack of the boss or the enemy or what have you. Um, it's it, yeah. Let's see. The method to progress the game is very ambiguous to me. Sometimes doing Vancour missions achieves it, and other times I need to sleep. But even then, sometimes there's no progress at all. It's very confusing. Yeah, to this day, I still don't know how to progress this game. Um, there was that one time where I slept 4 or 5 times in a row, and nothing happened. There were times where I did a Vancour mission, and after every Vancour mission, I got a story progression. But then there were some times where I did multiple Vancore missions and I didn't get story progression on either one. I don't believe that there are uh like like calendar days in this game. So there's something in this game that says like, hey, you can progress at this specific point, and I have maybe it could just be that I got incredibly unlucky. I have no idea, but that it was strange. Skills are otherwise very unnoticeable, but it's mega cool that you can learn the skills from your party members through linking. I thought this was a very cool system. Um, and I do talk about linking later on. The skill system is definitely very unimpactful. It's not necessarily very interesting, and the utilization in the game doesn't do hardly anything. I had that revival one for I don't know several battles. I think I died at least two times when I had that equipped. It procced once since I used it, and granted, when it did proc, it was a really good proc. But that being said, um, I don't think they're very impactful. I think they could be so much stronger. I think they could do cooler things. Um, but at the same time, learning there, which I technically knew but didn't know, is that by linking with all the people in your party in combat, you gain access to all of those things. So some unique things can happen there. And you can, I guess, build a cool party around that. For combat, one of my main concerns going into this game was how basic the combat is, and while it has more depth than I thought, it is still very shallow. Additionally, there's little to no cool things happening from my end. It feels like the optimal play is to swing once and then guard or dodge, while trying to utilize the full extent of your CP attacks just gets you punished. Seems like there's very little room for exciting plays. So I touched on this before. You can't noticeably use like 15 CP on a boss and then just not get attacked for it or something like that. Uh, Granted, I didn't use any of the later ones as like the starter of my combos. Could be that the start of your combo is quick and the end of your combo is slow. It could be that, but based off of how I've tested it out, it doesn't seem like a viable option. It's swing once, maybe swing twice. If you're lucky, you can swing three times, and then you dip. And that's all you have time for before, you get punished. The link system is very cool and very unique. I really like its implementation and wish more games implemented something similar. I thought this was very cool. I liked how many link options there were. I liked how the formation changed. I like how each one of them was, I would say, more or less significantly different. There were some of them that were similar, but they had different implementations to them, and they even worked differently. Um, I I like how they approached this. It was a cool way to do it. That being said, I don't think links were very useful on fights that mattered, like bosses. I think links were very dangerous to use because you're clumping up all of your people. And for the most part, I think they can only attack while in links, assuming the link allows you to attack. So um, you can't heal with your healers or anything like that. You also can't give any commands. You also cannot use items while you're linked. It's mostly a detriment in boss fights, especially threatening boss fights or threatening fights. Um, so I think that was a disappointment for me. The order system is very cool and very diverse, but its major flaw is you can't give orders if you lose control of Jack. Makes sense from a storytelling perspective, but also makes fights less enjoyable when you have to rely on the AI to make the correct decisions. All right. We all saw that final fight there where I had to babysit Edgar the entire time. The fight with the red dragon was kind of a similar thing. It could just be Edgar. I'm willing to believe this. But for the purposes of my experience playing only 3 healers in this entire game, I feel like the healer AI is not great. Um, I feel like they spend too much time attacking and not enough time healing. Edgar seemed pretty on point for curing status debuffs, but I'd rather you be healing, man. And so when it comes to the order system, though, I thought that was really cool that you can buy new orders, you can gain access to other orders, you can um uh you can utilize orders that affect everybody in your party, or you can order around specific party members to do specific things. It was cool. It was diverse. It allowed for a lot of control and customization, and that to me made the combat system better than it actually is. The other side of that coin, though, is to a large extent, I felt like I had to utilize those orders in the worst way possible, which is babysitting my healer, trying to get my characters to not die. Um, let's see. While there is a way to see enemy HP by using an item, I don't believe there is a way to view that HP again, which means you have to use another item to receive an update. This is a minor thing, but it is kind of annoying. If I'm fighting a boss and I use an item to see its HP, I want to see its HP. I tried pressing a bunch of buttons, select, the shoulder buttons, all kinds of buttons. And I couldn't figure it out. So, if there's a way to do that, I definitely missed it. For dungeons, man, this section is always just not getting any attention, but uh, there was really no dungeons that really stood out to me. The final dungeon I didn't like because it was trolling me the entire time. I spent way too long in that final dungeon. For cardinal sins, removing a key party member without sufficient replacement, Ridley, Gans, and the big choice. All right, let's just say that I found those goblins. Maybe I got some dark elves too. I don't know if you can do that, but then they just remove all of my goblin, my fairy creature friends, or all my human friends. It it it's a weird decision, I guess. It would have been much more interesting if this supposed relationship system that is in this game actually affected what characters you do get for that, because then uh, if you had characters that you were using a lot, despite whatever decision you made, maybe you could convince them to join your side and go off to chase after Ridley or something like that. Or maybe they would be your rivals for if they weren't convinced, and then you had to fight them later on in the story to accomplish something or something like that. Would have been cool, but instead they just kick out a bunch of party members and expect you to live with it. Escort missions. The dwarfs' iron goods to the city. This one was very early on in the game, but and it wasn't like a traditional escort mission, but it was an escort mission nonetheless. We were walking alongside a cart, and we couldn't go too far back. We couldn't go too far forward. It was an escort mission. Backup party earns less experience. So every reserve member does not receive any experience from what I've seen, and that certainly makes choosing other characters a little bit more difficult, to say the least. And game over if the main character dies. This is a relatively new cardinal sin, thanks to Final Fantasy 13. And yeah, I'm not really a fan of this. I have revival items. If I could issue commands when Jack is dead, then I could revive him. But because I couldn't do that, I couldn't do that. For miscellaneous and sound and music, some solid music. Although the overall audio balancing is not good, there are many moments when the music drowns out other sounds and noises the game is trying to convey. Um, I think this problem, I think this problem is very large for a game like this because the voice acting is so low, and there are some musical tracks that are just so loud, and they use those tracks for like tension and stuff like that. But it's like, well, whenever that one note of the track plays, you can't hear any of the voice acting, So wish they balanced that a little bit better. The voice acting ultimately enjoyable, but as with the music, the audio levels need improvement. They are too low. So I touched on that already. For graphics, I enjoyed these graphics a great deal. Jack's face is one of the highlights of the game because the expressions are so silly. I can't help but smile at them. It's I think it's a very, I don't know how to want to say this. I received an armor that, for me, was the best armor in the game. And I chose not to equip it because I wanted to see Jack's expressions in cutscenes. And I think that says something. I think that says a lot. Jack's expressions were paramount to the enjoyment I was getting out of the scenes that were presented, and I enjoyed it a lot. I think this game has a very I don't necessarily want to say unique art style or unique art direction, but it has a maybe like a unique twist or a unique presentation to it that makes it stand out a lot. That I enjoyed a great deal. For replay value, does the game offer additional story content on a second playthrough to warrant playing the game again, such as Fire Emblem Three Houses? So there's an entirely new route, which presumably drastically changes how the story is presented. I would imagine the ending is uh, I would imagine the ending is probably relatively the same, but I'm gonna say yeah. I think there is replay value in this game. Doing the fairy creature route is probably going to give you uh, new story, and it could end up with a new ending as well. It's possible that you defeat Aphelios before the whole Golden Dragon confrontation and stuff like that. So the ending probably plays out differently. Is the game worth recommending? Uh, I would say I would say yes, with the caveat that the person playing it is probably going to get stuck or lost. Um, I I think this game is better than average, and I do think that this game is better than a lot of other games out there, even though the story is a bit of a mess in terms of presentation and elaboration. And even though the combat isn't necessarily all that interesting, I think there's a lot of charm in this game that doesn't exist in other games. And that's what probably made me enjoy this game uh, as much as I did. You know, it's like I had a lot of fun with that charm, and it brought something to the table that kind of made up for some of the deficiencies elsewhere. When I played again, whether immediately near future or distant future, um, this is again, I need to restructure this question, but I would say I am curious about the other route. So I could see myself playing the game again for the other route, and seeing where it takes me and how the whatchamacallit ends, the like the second ending, and maybe see the true ending and stuff like that. If the developer is watching, um, I don't necessarily have anything more to say about the game than I've already said. It was an interesting game. I think it's I really don't want to say it this way, but I think that games like these that have a large cast of characters, it's an interesting idea to explore. And I feel like this game explored that idea. And if it were to build upon that idea and actually create something cool, it would need to drastically reduce the amount of characters that can be recruited, and then add personality and story and development to all of those characters. It would be much more interesting to play this game with a cast of four characters, and everybody in the town just has their own dialogue that changes throughout the story or the time of day. Maybe you can help them at certain times of the day. Maybe you can trigger certain side quests with them at the certain times of the day. Um, just kind of go in that direction, because for me personally, a large cast of characters does nothing if they have no relevance to the story. Um, a cardinal sin for me is silent protagonists, and basically the 177 friends are silent protagonists in this game. You know, it's rough times. But do I want a sequel? I would actually play a sequel to this game. Uh, I I think this game has potential to be improved upon. And while I don't necessarily think that a like a direct sequel to it would mean much, I think they could still do some interesting things. We can go to war with the fairy creatures and stuff like that. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, just to reiterate my overall thoughts. I thought the game was fun. I had a good time playing it. I don't necessarily like the direction the story was taken or delivered to me. I didn't think the combat was uh, much of anything. It was kind of restrictive, I suppose. But even with those, I think this game did have a lot of charm. I think it had a lot of entertainment value to it, and that elevated this game much higher than it probably would have been if it was just a standard JRPG where you're going to save the world and everybody's serious. So, yeah, I think those are my thoughts on Radiata story. Z- yeah.